channels. So, how you all doing? I'm warming up for my idea explosion challenge today. So basically what that means is I've got a class of my program, the idea explosion challenge, starting this weekend, and I'm going to be doing it at the same time as everyone else. And what the idea explosion challenge is essentially how I teach people how to generate absolutely shed loads of ideas, and in so doing start the process of making much better music and a lot more of it with a lot less effort. Now, it's not just about starting ideas, you know, that the whole process isn't in the idea explosion challenge, but the first step that we want to get dialed in is starting ideas well, because often what we do is we paint ourselves into a musical corner, if you like, or even a psychological corner, and create all kinds of mental obstacles which we can't overcome because we attempt to edit too soon, because we want to create quality. Right? We all want to create the best quality of music we can. I want that, and I want that for you. I want that for everyone. I want there to be a lot more better music out there. But what I've noticed is that trying to create and edit at the same time is a little bit like trying to drive a car by pushing the accelerator and the brake pedal at the same time. What ends up happening? You end up going round and round in circles, which isn't ideal, obviously. So, this is what the Idea Explosion Challenge is about. And what I'm going to do over the next 10 days is see if I can come up with 100 ideas myself. Now, if you're new to these live streams, then please understand that you can ask me any questions you like about absolutely anything, even though I'm setting myself this 100 splurge challenge goal over the next 10 days. I won't be only doing it on live streams. I'm also going to be doing it kind of myself. So don't feel that you're disturbing me or anything like that. The reason for me doing these splurges, these live streams, is for me to actually help you. So you can always ask me a question about what I'm doing, what you're doing. If you're in the Idea Explosion Challenge class about that, you can always ask me in the comments in the live chat. I'm streaming to YouTube and Facebook and Twitch as well. So you can find me on any of those channels. So please feel free to ask me a question, and don't be a lurker. Lurking is shirking. Okay. So what I'm doing, oh, here we go. Hi, Chris. I don't know if you've seen my post on the 11-day challenge, but I've always struggled to get my music professional. That word, professional. Ben's asking, what synth did I use to make Rump Funk? I'll get to that soon. How do I go about this? Right, so in terms of getting your music to sound professional, I would suggest coming on the call tomorrow, because I'm running a call for Idea Explosion members, which I will be live streaming too, and asking me a question about this, because we need to have a proper conversation about getting your music to sound professional. because I don't. What do you mean by professional? It depends what you mean. Because I want, for instance, I want my lawyers to be professional. I want, when they start flying again, my airline pilots to be professional. I want my surgeons, my brain surgeons and my heart surgeons to be professional. And I want my accountants to be professional. I'm not sure I want my musicians to be professional. So you must mean something by that. I mean, I definitely want people to have a pro mindset, right? Which is about showing up every day, doing the work, even when you're not motivated. But I'm not sure I want my music to sound professional. So what do you mean by that? I love to aspire to artists like Aurosonic, Armin van Buuren, and Above and Beyond, and sound as clear as them. Okay, so one of the ways that you can do that is by choosing the. I mean, I'd have to listen to your music, and I can't do that obviously. But one of the ways that they do that is actually. Okay, one of the things I've learned about the end part of the process is so much of it is about the start of the process. Essentially, so much of mixing is about sound choice and arrangement. How you arrange those sounds. I don't necessarily, well, it is how you arrange left to right as well. But it's also about what sounds are playing at any given moment. More than it is, you know, the flashy stuff at the end. Because the source material will determine how good it sounds afterwards. An example is in the Mastermind group that I ran yesterday. Was it in the Mastermind group or was it someone else? I can't remember. Anyway, I was talking to somebody and we've been actually focused on the composition side of their music and also the quality of their ideas. Okay. And this masterminder had been struggling with the mix kind of for years, trying to make it sound professional. He doesn't use that phrase anymore because I think it's a very unhelpful phrase because it sends you down all sorts of rabbit holes, right? But basically struggling with the same thing. But we have been focused on, one of the things that we've been focused on is the composition, the ideas, what's in there, right? And actually really keeping it as simple as possible. And what he's found, simply by focusing on those things, that the mix largely is much easier to do and it sounds much better. Because really what a great mix does is it makes the music sound more like it already is. Yeah. If you try and polish a turd, it will just be even more smelly. Right? So what I would respectfully suggest is that maybe where the problem lies in the first instance, and of course there is stuff that you can learn at the end, right? But where the problem lies is maybe earlier on in actually identifying where maybe you're missing something earlier in the process. And when I say you're missing something, I don't mean you're missing parts, because probably you've got too many parts in. But there are things like contrast, contrast between parts, contrast between sections, the way that the music builds tension and releases that tension, whether the music has a very strong thing, identifiable thing, what happens in the music, is there a payoff moment? All of these things, when you get these, when you start to kind of understand these things, it actually makes the mix much easier. Somebody said on a previous live stream to me that it's funny, isn't it? And I can't remember the exact words they used, but they said it's weird, you know, in music. Music is different to everything else because, you know, you wouldn't get a painter to repaint your painting. So why do you get a mix engineer to mix your music? And I said that's, first of all, it's a very difficult analogy to kind of. It's not a very good analogy, painting and music in terms of mixing. But if I was to be forced to make that analogy, what I would say a mix engineer does, what it's more like actually putting that painting in a frame and putting it in the right room with the right light and putting it in amongst other paintings. It's not actually repainting the painting. So that's kind of what I would suggest on that. Really focus on the ideas and focus on the composition and how the music moves. Is there contrast? Is there tension and release? That's how I'd go about that. You'd be amazed. So Douglas is struggling. I just bought Push 2 and still learning Ableton, and I saw you have Omnisphere, so I bought that. Well, don't just buy what I have. That's not like the idea is to use, like you could make an entire career's worth of music just using Ableton. Okay, Douglas. So just don't buy loads of stuff. You buy one thing at a time. Is how I buy stuff. I know it might not look like that, but literally every single thing that I bought it, and then I used it for a certain amount of time, and then I bought something else. Okay, and apart from this, which is simply because I didn't have enough holes because I was live streaming, right? And it was just getting a nightmare. I was spending like an hour every day unplugging and replugging things because I only had 2 holes. I bought this in order to save time. So, hello Benjamin. Hello John. So I started making some drum and bass in this lockdown. I'm using a reference track. Oh, yeah. So my first piece of advice is don't use a reference track at the start. Just make music, okay? With what you have. Using a reference track at the start. So yes, using a reference track to make sure that things are okay at the end is a good idea. Or, I mean, you don't have to do that, but it is a good idea just to make sure that you're not totally off base. But I would not use a reference track at the start. That's you're going to get into all kinds of psychological problems there. Yeah. What we're looking for is for you to make your music, and you need to discover what your music is. So what I would suggest, I mean, you probably know enough about drum and bass to have a ballpark idea. Yeah, you're not trying to ape somebody. You're not trying to be a bad imitation of someone else. You're trying to discover who you are as an artist. Okay, and that involves leaving the reference tracks aside for now. Yeah, I mean, right, don't get me wrong. You can learn from copying other music. You can do that. But what I would suggest, if you want to go as quickly as you can, is making the music that comes out, and then seeing how that relates to the music out there. That's what my very, very strong recommendation. I've done both, and I have learned from literally copying. I mean, I don't release this stuff, but literally copying to see how I can try and make sounds like that. I have done that in the past. But that is different to actually making music. It's more of a kind of training tool. So if you're going to do that as a separate thing. Okay, if you're going to try and ape another track in order to learn something, do that as like a training thing at the end of the day. At the start of the day, be making your music. Yeah, and you might not know what your music is, but that's the point of it. You don't have to think your way into it. You have to create your way into it. Okay. How do you stop caring about quality? It's not that you stop caring about quality. You just don't pay attention to your quality feelings. And by the way, that's a strange question for people who don't understand what we're doing here. The splurge is an idea generation method to make absolutely loads of ideas. Okay, and one of the rules of the splurge is that we do not focus on quality. That means that doesn't mean we don't care about quality. It just means we don't focus on it in order to make lots of ideas. So in other words, I mean, Murify, let me ask you, how many thoughts and feelings, well, let's just say thoughts for now. How many thoughts come into your mind every single day that you that you don't do anything about? I mean, how many? It must be a lot if you're anything like me. If you did pay attention to, if you did act upon all of those thoughts that come into your head, every single thought that came into your head, you, if you're anything like me, would either be in prison or, I don't know, you'd be in serious trouble, right? So you do have the ability not to act upon thoughts and feelings. You already have that ability. You're an expert in it. We all are. We must be, in order to be kind of contributing, pleasant human beings. Yeah. So what I'm asking you to do, it's not that you don't have the quality thoughts. It's just that you don't do anything about them at that point, because you understand that trying to push the brake and the accelerator at the same time is going to end in you going around in circles. Yeah, Benjamin, I don't give feedback on demos, because if I did that on demos to just anyone, because and I'm sorry, you're not just anyone. Very, very glad to have you here, but I can't give feedback just sort of randomly to people, because if I did that, I'd be doing that literally all day, every day, and it's not the greatest value that I can give. Okay, so Fred, hey Mike, I'm getting lost in the develop stage. Do I rename the splurges at this stage? Well, what I do is I rename, I keep the same name as the original splurge, but I just add the date of the next session. To carry on, Douglas, to carry on what I was saying, how to splurge when you're a complete beginner on the kit you're using. All right, so just remove everything apart from Ableton and splurge on that. Just use like a couple of plugins and just splurge on that. You've unfortunately gone down a rabbit hole of buying stuff, which, like every single thing that you buy, I mean, you're just explaining it yourself. You know your own problem, which is that you've got too much to learn. Yeah. So just for now, for the challenge, yeah, simply focus on a couple of plugins in Ableton. You follow the instructions in the program, okay, and just choose things that you already know. I know you're kind of starting out, but choose things that you know better than anything else, and focus on them. Don't worry about the new kit for now. You can do that later. Yeah, just lower the bar. Yeah. Itamar, Mike, thanks to you, I now have a full album ready for release. I'm trying to understand how to launch it as an anonymous artist. I was wondering if you could recommend a book or any other resource of how to create a tribe fan base from scratch. Yeah. So this is one of those situations where it's the way you're thinking about it is kind of, it makes complete sense. And when I say it's backwards, I say it with kindness. But the way you're thinking about it is backwards, right? How does a musician get to be known? Right? How, like just think about that. What is it that means that a musician, any artist, any music artist becomes well known? What is the medium through which they are well known? They become well known. Their music. So in other words, the thing that you have just created, the album, the tracks on the album, are the thing that are going to attract people to you. Yeah, that's how it works for an artist. Yeah, always has done. Of course, another way is live gigs, but they're not happening right now. Yeah, but basically, the music is the thing that attracts the audience. What you're asking me is, how do I get an audience to this music? It's the other way around. You use the music to attract the audience. It's always been that way, but we've been confused by the recording industry, where you had these bits of plastic that, record labels sold and marketed with massive budgets. Yeah. So we've got this impression that there's like this special marketing thing that we can do, which will mean that we can launch this album onto the world and everyone go, ah, wow. Brain explosion, faces melting. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. If you don't have a major label or a big label behind you, then that album is the thing that will be promoting you as an artist, growing your fan base. Yeah. So it's almost like you've now got a finished product and you're like, right, I'm ready to promote it. But that is the thing that is going to promote you as an artist. So what I might think about doing is releasing the album gradually. Yeah. If you're starting out, if you don't already have an audience. I mean, when I came back to making music, and the first thing I did was release The Begin, which was I did release an album, but that's because I had a following from before, and I also wanted to, you know, I got it to the top of Beatport, number 2 on the whole of Beatport release chart, and I wanted to show that you could do that without any PR, without any gigs, without anything like that. So that's why I did it with an album rather than a single, because I knew it would be easier to do it with an album. Yeah. So I did that for a specific reason, but if I was being smarter about it as an independent artist, I'd be releasing each track and using those tracks to build the audience. And obviously there's lots of different ways that you can do that. There is a good book by, what's he called? It's Ari Herstand. Yeah. Now, what I would be careful with that book, so just look up the recent book. I think he's just re-released it. I can't remember what it's called, but it was by Ari Herstand, yeah, and it's about kind of marketing in the music industry. And he's got courses and stuff like that. One thing to be careful with books like that is that is a book of all of the things that you could do. And I've often had people come into my mastermind and say, right, I've got this 5,000 things. You know, I'm going to start a label. You know, it's okay because I've got a checklist. And there's like 100 like things on the checklist, and I'm like, okay, can we just put the checklist to one side for now and focus on what you actually can do and what you're going to do and what works for you. You know, books like that tend to be all of the things that you could do and not necessarily what you should do. And there's a difference between what you could do and what you actually want to do, what you're going to do. Yeah. So read a book like that and actually just pick like a couple of the strategies or a couple of the ideas in there and focus on them. You know, like maybe one social network to start, one, you know, a couple of the things rather than trying to do it all, because it fast becomes very, very overwhelming. Okay. Chris, how can you turn an 8-bar loop into a finished track? I have many splurges and I'm constantly creating. Quite frustrating when I don't know what to do with the idea next, if that makes sense. So yeah, so I mean, you'll notice that with my splurges I don't ever have an 8-bar loop. Watch me over the next few days making splurges and you'll see. Okay, I think that's probably the best thing to do there. Yeah, so my mastermind, Chris, is it's a group of music producers who meets every well, in fact I've got four of them, 4 groups of music producers who I meet with every 2 weeks, and I do quarterly reviews with them individually as well, and I've been doing it for like, 3 years, and we work together and we set goals and they make music and all the rest of it. So yeah, Douglas, send me an email to mike@makemusicyourlife.com and put The Leap in the subject line. We run classes of that at 4 times a year, essentially. When I say does it include live streams? Well, I mean, the live streams are public, so, but it includes coaching calls, which aren't live streamed. They're kind of group coaching calls. And there's a whole, system called the Automatic Music Machine, which I teach, which is about finishing the music as well. So let's actually let's do some music after all those questions. So let's go to Computer Cam. Hello, Computer Cam. Get rid of that. So what I've got here is a template that basically has loads of stuff in it, yeah. And I'm going to make it simpler for the start of my challenge, okay. And basically the idea of this starting template is just to identify certain things in different frequency ranges. So I'm kind of like we're assembling our band, if you like. So beats is one of the frequency ranges. I'm actually going to close these up to make it simpler so you can see the different things. Right, let me just go through it with you. All right. So I've got the profit over here. Hang on. So, yeah. Yep. I've got the SH7, which is this thing over here, which I've got plugged into. It should work. Yep. I've got the mother here. Yeah. Yep. And then I've got the DFAM, which plays when it's synced up. At the moment it's doing a kind of shaker thing, which is this one here. Okay. And then I've got some plugins. Diva, Omnisphere, which is just loading up. Studio Cam. No. Synth Cam. Yeah. And I've got piano, because I like using piano in my stuff. And at the moment I've got an 808. Right, but I'm going to cut this down for the purposes of the challenge, because for me, at this point, there's probably too many options. It's all right to do that sometimes, but I'm trying to create extreme quantity, right? So, don't you talk about my mother. Sorry about that, Chris. Unless she's 32, then it's probably not your mother we're talking about. Anyway, so what we're looking for is beats and then 4 frequency ranges, because when you think about most Western music anyway, almost every kind of band or group is split into frequency ranges, you know, a choir, bass, tenor, alto, soprano, yep. Then an orchestra, basses, cellos, violas, violins, yep. Or even a rock band. We've got bass, depending on how they play it, rhythm guitar maybe some kind of keyboard, and then voice. Yeah. So it's like music is kind of separated into the frequency ranges. And the reason for creating a template like this is it gives us some kind of limitations, right? Because kind of exactly the opposite to what kind of the approach Douglas has taken. And by the way, Douglas, you've not done anything that most people do this, okay? Because they just think, oh, there's all this stuff, I just need more stuff and it'll be better, yeah? Actually, how you become more creative is actually imposing limitations upon yourself. Yeah, more stuff makes you less creative, yeah? And you have to kind of impose certain limitations, because like, what is creativity? We only have to use creativity in order to overcome a limitation. Otherwise, we don't need to be creative. Yeah. So a great way of increasing your creativity is to impose limitations upon yourself. Okay. So that's what this is about, and it also kind of gives you almost like a map of the kind of things that you want to be doing by creating this kind of a template. And you don't have to use this template forevermore. That's not what this is about. And you're not trying to create the perfect template or anything like that. It's not this. You're just choosing some stuff to get started with, and then you're splurging with it for a certain period of time. And then once you've splurged with it for a certain period of time, you're going, okay, so what did I like about that? What didn't like about that? How maybe could I tweak it? And that's what we're going to do through the Idea Explosion Challenge program. Okay. So, I'm going to decide to remove some of these things. Yeah. And save it as a different template, because this is just my kind of basic template, which has too much stuff for what I'm doing at the moment. Okay, so I think I need something for beats, something for bass. So basically at the moment the mother and the SH7 are kind of fulfilling a similar function. I think I want to keep the profit in for now, because I've just recently plugged it in. It's still got dust on it, and I've kind of been enjoying playing it. So I'm going to keep the profit in for now. And hang on, how many have I got? So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And I definitely want a piano, right? So I'm going to put that there. And I want the profit. Yeah. definitely want the defam. Alright. So I reckon the defam is going to be the beats. Yeah. And I'm going to call the piano the high mid. Excellent. Yeah, and they're saying my colleagues asked me, what are my plans for this weekend? I said, this weekend, I'm going to splurge. And they were like, oh, that sounds pretty horrible. I'm sure. Yes. Great. No, I've got loads of people splurging. Somebody said to me the other day in the community, oh, I really love splurging. I just hate the word. And I was like, get used to it. So, all right. I basically need to decide between the mother and the defam, I think, at this point. I think I'm going to go for not the defam, the SH7. I think I'm going to go for the SH7 because it's more unpredictable. It's not because I don't like the mother or anything like that. Let's call that the bass end. All right. So I'm going to remove the mother for now. I can always bring it back, later. Remember, this is just one of the things. So I'm going to remove the 808, because I've already got beats up here. Let's just put this in some kind of meaningful order. And high mid, and then bass. Yep. Sorry, close that up. Felt piano, high mid. Profit, let's call that low mid. Now, I need to choose between Omnisphere and Diva for high. I'm going to go for Omnisphere just because it's... So the thing is about Omnisphere, and by the way, Douglas, I'm not telling you to use this right now because you're just learning, right? So it's going to be way, 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 way too overwhelming. So don't use Omnisphere at this point. Just keep it simple, right? Bear in mind, I've been doing this for very many years, and back in like when I used to make music, because I took an 8-year break while I was coaching people. But back when I used to make music, it was 17 years, and for quite a few of those years, I did use Omnisphere. So I'm kind of very, I know it really well. Yeah. The reason I've chosen Omnisphere, and the reason it's got kind of a movie thing, is because it's kind of very cinematic, and it kind of I find it quite inspiring. And Diva is great as well, but it's got less. It has simpler sounds, and the Omnisphere thing kind of almost immediately creates a kind of soundscape, which I find quite useful for splurging. It's Chris saying over 10,000 sounds, not enough time to go through them, Douglas. Yeah. There's an advert. I don't know if you've seen it, and I'm not going to mention the company. There's an advert online, right? And it's a typical music production industrial complex advert. Right? And what the music production industrial complex is I mean, to be fair, I'm kind of a part of it, right? Because I'm selling training around music, but what it is like it's the conglomeration of all of these companies who, to be fair, individually they're all wanting to help. They're all wanting to help people make music. I don't think any of them are evil, right? But as a whole, it's like they kind of whisper in your ear, buy this. This will make, this is the magic button. Just buy this synthesizer, and you will sound like Armin van Buuren or your favorite artist. Just buy it. This compressor will solve all your problems. Just buy it. Right. Yeah, you know that feeling. Oh, here we go. Whoa. And and the worst time is like Black Friday around that time. Cyber Monday. And it kind of whispers to you to buy this thing, and it will solve your problem in terms of making your music sound professional. That is not how it works. How you make music sound great is by making a lot of music. And when you've got too much stuff that you don't know how to use, that will stop you from making music. So by buying too much, I'm not anti-gear. Look at me. Look, you know. Here we go. Synth Cam. I'm not anti-gear, right? Okay. But by buying too much stuff that you don't know how to use up front, yeah, you're going to be making less music. You're going to get overwhelmed. You're not going to make any music. So in other words, what the kind of music production industrial complex tells you isn't true. Yeah, buying stuff is not the key. Making stuff is the solution. Yeah, breaking through, making stuff that is crap as well, because that's how you learn. Yeah, not going, you know, playing something, making it, and then comparing it to your favorite artist and go, oh no, right, I give up. I need to buy another synth. Right. It's not how it works. Going, okay, that sounds terrible. Why? What is it about it that sounds terrible? Where are the differences? How can I improve? Yeah. And there's this advert. Going back to the advert, there's this advert at the moment that I've seen, and it says something like, with a library of 4 million sounds, how much music will you make today? And it's like, 4 million sounds? Absolutely none. It's like it's so wrong-headed. It's just ridiculous. Like having more sounds. Oh, hang on, what's going on? Yeah, having more sounds isn't what's going to get you to make music. Having less sounds is what's going to get you to make more music, and then progressively you can add the ability to have more sounds. So, I'm actually doing that kind of challenge myself. So I'm curious, do you mix the splurge, or is your splurge more songwriting orientated? I'm not sure I understand the question. I mean, it's oriented. I mean, the splurge isn't really orientated towards a particular style of music. It's just the start of the process. It's the start of every creative process, really. It wants to be, which is just creating without borders. Like, I tell you what. I was watching, and it's funny because I've just been talking about the music production industrial complex, and now I'm going to talk about a bit of training, but it's not really training, it's more like a documentary. But anyway, I was watching the Timberlake masterclass last night, and the start of his masterclass, it's just brilliant, right? Because it's the first video, and there is him splurging. Basically, he splurges with his voice, so he does like a kind of beatbox splurging. It's absolutely brilliant, like he's a master, yeah. But at the end, he says you can change any of these sounds. You don't edit it at this point. This is a great thing about making music. I'm paraphrasing here. This is the great thing about making music. You can be free. Yeah, you can be free with it. That is the essence of splurging. It's not really any specific. I mean, there are specific things that I get you to do, for instance, in the Idea Explosion Challenge program, but that's in order to kind of get you to learn about this process of just being free, letting it go, having fun, seeing what comes out, yeah, and being okay with a lot of it being rubbish, because that's where the magic is. Yeah, that's how you'll kind of learn how to practice. Okay, so now I have identified my template. I'm going to save it as a template, and I'm going to call it. Unfortunately, I'm getting to the point where do you ever get that thing where you have to do like 5,000 exclamation marks in order to get it to show up at the top? I'm up to 5 now. I'm going to have to sort this out soon. But anyway, so let's call it IC Day. Let's call it 5 players. Oops. May 5 players. Wonderful. Right. Now let's make some music. Right. So while I'm doing this, and please feel free to ask questions at any point. I just want to reiterate that you don't have to keep quiet while I'm making music. You just feel like you cannot disturb me. that's impossible. I'm here to be disturbed. Okay, I make music on my own as well, so don't worry about that. So while you're watching me do this, just notice when you think that I'm like, just notice for yourself when you think I'm starting to get sucked into kind of a quality judgment, and when you see me just kind of going with it. Yeah, just kind of watch that, because I'm a human being, right? And do not focus on quality at this point. Just let it all come out. Zero focus on quality, 100% focus on speed. That is almost like an impossible direction. Yeah, but it's a very useful direction, because what does it do? If I tell you not to focus on quality, what does that mean you have to do while you're making the music? It means you have to notice whether you are focusing on quality at all times. What does that do? How is that helpful in your process? It means that you're actually developing an awareness of what you are doing in your creative process. How is that helpful to help you make music? Well, I'm sure you can work it out. So let's go to Studio Cam. Didn't work. There we go. Right, and I'm just going to play this. Actually, I'm not sure. Actually, I might play it over here because I've got it midied up. And what I usually do is I just start with a sound. And then I just play something. Now, I'm sure I'm going to get some questions about, well, yes, but what if I don't play the piano? And yes, you can still splurge if you don't play the keyboard, but we'll come to that. So just watch for a bit, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. So I've come up with the part, yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I did actually play this part before the thing. I don't usually do that. I mean, but it was literally the first part I played, so I just remembered it because I quite liked it. There you go, quite liked it. But quality judgment. Right, I'm having it, yeah. And what I usually do is I use the part to determine, so the sound has determined the part, and the part has determined the tempo. Now, the reason that the reason I do that is because I'm not making music in a particular tempo. One of the things that I find, well, no, I don't find it unusual, I know why it is, but particularly in electronic music, genres are very, very defined by specific tempos. I write house, so I am going to write between 120 and 128. Yeah, I mean, I did that for years. that was what I did, and I found it very restrictive. As an artist, not so much as a DJ, obviously, because it's kind of different. But I'm drum and bass. That means I write it, And it's like, so in coming back to making music, I realized that was one of the things that was holding me back. So what I'm trying to do is develop a style which isn't dependent on tempo. Yeah, for people to be instantly, no matter what tempo it is, whether it's 300 BPM or 20 BPM, people go, oh yeah, that's Mike Monday, because that's really exciting to me as a thing to do. Okay, so that's why I start with the sound, which makes me think of a part, and then the part gives me the tempo. You don't need to do it like that. You can work, if you want to write house music or drum and bass or dubstep or folk or death metal or whatever it is, yeah, you work however you want to work in terms of how you start. Okay. Hello, David. So let's do a let's check they've got roughly the right tempo. It seems a bit fast to me, but I thought so. My terrible. Yeah, that's more like it. I thought, have I lost my marbles? It didn't sound like 135 to me. Yeah, it's even slower than that. What I might do actually is I might double the tempo. Might I? Would I? No, I'm not going to. I'm going to leave it like that. All right. I'm going to turn you down and studio cam. And then I'm going to just play. Now what I tend to do is not press record, because that freaks me out and I choke. We've got to sort that out sometime. Right, so there we go. So I captured that recording. You heard I made a few mistakes. Now, back to the computer. Now, do I edit that? So when you make a mistake, obviously, if I follow 100% the direction, zero focus on quality, I won't be editing it at all. Yeah. What I am going to do, definitely, is I'm going to start this note on the 1. Yeah, because if I chop this here, it's going to mean the note disappears. Yeah. So that's one thing I am going to do. Another thing I need to do is practice my playing much more so I get more accurate. But that's taking time. I'm getting there. I'm practicing the piano regularly. In a minute, so yeah. So in here, as I was changing the note, there's a big mistake, right? And at the moment, I'm not going to edit it. I'm just going to leave it in and see what happens. Okay. Going in and out of time again. And I'm just gonna live with that. Yeah, I'm going to leave that mistake in. Right now, this doesn't mean, yeah, that I'm going to leave that mistake in forever if I choose to come back to this and work on it. I might not. But I'll come to mistakes later on in future live streams. Okay, but I leave a lot of mistakes in at the splurge stage for very specific and very good reasons. Okay, not all of them, not always, but often. Okay, so you can hear my playing is all over the place, and there's that big mistake there. I'm just going to leave it. Okay. And by the way, something else. On day 11 of this challenge, so that's because we're on day 0 now, so that's 12 days from now. I'm actually going to do a listening session. So if you want to find out what this actually ends up sounding like at the end, then come back in 11 days time. Yeah, exactly, Yaniv. It's actually a moment. And it's a bit out of time and everything, but it's okay. I can fix it. I can fix it if I need to further in the future. Alright, so I actually was working on something else, and the defam ended up on that because this hasn't got any presets or anything. So I'm gonna probably start with that as a starting point for the next part. So we're onto the beats now. What do I need to do? Let's go to Synth Cam. Synth Cam! Yeah, so we're going to record a little part there, I think. Let's go from the top. Right, let's go from the top. Gradually getting better at remembering to change my cam. So... That's all cool. I leave it at that for the shaker, and I think what I might do is put in something else. Remember, I got rid of the 808, so I've only got the defam for the beats. So I'm gonna have to play around again. So back to Synth Cam, and let's change this. I feel it needs a bit of, you know, with that shaker on its own, it's just all a bit lost in the, like it's very hard to kind of figure out where what is. Yeah. So just trying that. Just turn it down a bit. Crushingly loud. Okay. Yeah. that's what it is. Oh, I'm just going to start this. I don't know what's going on. Can't hear. You're making very strange sounds, DFAM. What's going on? There we go. There we go. Whoop, 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 whoop. Where are you? Right. Start to work out my knobs. The thing is about the DFAM, you've always got to get it back to, this is, I'll go back to Synth Cam. Right. This is a sequencer along here. So these knobs, that's pitch and that's velocity. Okay. Velocity means how, well, kind of, how loud. What velocity actually means is, in relation to a keyboard, is how hard the velocity, how quickly you hit the keys. Which, because obviously, if you hit a key harder, it tends to be louder on a piano. So that's what velocity means. Yeah. So if I turn up the knob, then it is going to be louder because within here it's set to, I think it's the volume of the noise creating thing. Yeah. And then pitch is pitch. Yeah. So each of these, it's an 8-step sequencer. So when I press run, when I press the DAW, because I've got it synced up, because there isn't any MIDI. So I've got it synced up via this. I don't know whether you can see that box. Can you see that? No, you can't. Via this. Yeah, which is an ERM multi-clock. So I've got it synced with the DAW. So it sends robot language. Like, actually, all it sends is that, I think, like a, yeah. The DAW is sending the multi-clock, the robot language, and then the multi-clock is sending a signal to here, yeah. And I've plugged it into this hole, which means that when I press play, this starts running, yeah. Yeah. So I can determine what it's playing by twisting these knobs, right? So that's what I'm doing now. So. DFAM. Just turn you up a bit. Hello, Nat. Let me just sort that out for you. That should be better. Let's turn you off. Okay. I'm not editing. I'm just trying to make the level right. This isn't editing. Right, because I haven't even got anything to edit. Trying to make the level right. Ain't editing. if I did something to the part, yeah. So I've got to set up the recording, yeah, so that it's the right level. Otherwise, I'll have something to edit. So I didn't say that. I never said no leveling. That would be ridiculous. No, but I take your point, Yaniv. I do take your point. Absolutely. It is easy to get lost in this kind of stuff if you're not careful. That's why actually splurging with hardware can... I am here, by the way. That's why splurging with hardware can be more difficult. So, here we go. So I think what I'm going to do is this. There we go. And one of the things that people say about this whole zero focus on quality rule is, what does that actually mean? Like, how do you do that? Like, at the end point of not focusing on quality is to just be like a chimp at the keyboard, like a monkey, just playing anything. Isn't that what the end point would be? Well, yeah. Why don't you try it? See what happens. Because one of the purposes of this direction is actually to get you to investigate what it actually means, how it holds you back, maybe. This, like, oh, you gotta make quality right now. It's gonna sound amazing, otherwise, you know how that actually impacts what you can do, what you can't do, what you have to do if it sounds terrible. What do you do next? Because I can guarantee you that if you want to do this, if you want to like make lots of music, then probably a majority of the time you're going to be in a state of thinking this isn't very good. Or even if this isn't terrible, anything from I'm not really into this to this is terrible, right? So you got to get used to it. Okay. Right. What I am going to do is just, because I'll put that in next. I'm going to do it like that. And what I do is actually join that part together. Just because I can't be bothered. And let's just make it like that. And that's fine. And then I'm going to move this over here. And see what we can do with the old SH7. So, get Studio Cam. Okay, so what I'm going to do is first have a fiddle around and find some kind of part stroke sound. Obviously, with a piece of gear that doesn't have presets, you can't. Well, you can, I suppose. I mean, I suppose I did start with the sound in terms of with the defam, but you can't really start with the sound, you know, because often what I'll do on things that has presets, I'll just start with the preset just to have something to start with, rather than kind of try and build everything from the beginning, because it's just lowering the bar and it's meaning I'm getting on with the ideas. I can do the sound design stuff and, you know, mess around with that later. Yeah. I mean, sometimes you do start with a sound. That's totally cool too. But so, and here's an example. Yeah, it's kind of playing with the sound in the part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it off the ability to play here, and the ability, and now I can play it on here. Yeah, because if I switch that switch, I can only play it on here. If I switch this switch, I can't play it on here, but I can play it on here. Yeah, but this hasn't got MIDI either. Yeah. So the way I get MIDI is by connecting that keyboard to the computer to the multi-clock again, which is then connected to this CV converter thing, because this has only got CV, which is control voltage, and then essentially that converts that to MIDI, and so then I can now play that. So, in case you were wondering, let's go with this. And where's the again, this is quite quiet. Sort this out here. Very loud. Let's test down. This is a problem you don't get with VSTs. Creating that. So that's one cool thing that you do get with outboard, right? Is that things happen, and you're like, oh, why is that happening? I don't know why that's doing that, but you can often use it as a weird that when you play this. So why is it that when I play it on that keyboard, it does that nice diddle-doo, diddle-doo, but on this one, it's not? Maybe it's because... Anyway, I'm going to play it in, and then I'm going to see if I can get it. Right, let's go. Okay, will do. I think I might do with that is just a little bit of a quantize, and yes, that is a little bit of quality thing jumping in there, but you know, it took me like 3 seconds, so I'll let myself up far. Alright, let's see if I can figure out what's going on, why this is, it doesn't matter too much, but I'm going to give it like, where's my timer? I'm going to give myself 3 minutes to figure it out. See if I can figure out why there's that difference. What would it be? It says envelope 1, so... Ah, that's it, I think it's the auto bend. It's a nice sound, that. doing my head in now. A little bit. There we go. Right. Ro, hi. Hello, David. Okay, so we've got the regulars in the house. So, what I need to do is I need to make a recording of this. So this is the approach I take, okay, when splurging with hardware which has 0 presets saving ability, okay? Because I'm not, like, there's very, very little chance that with either the DFAM or the SH7 that I'm going to get back this sound, any of these sounds exactly as they are in the future, because there's just too many variables. It's almost like, if can I show you? Probably not easily. So these, hang on, Synth Cam. Yeah, right, okay. So these sliders here are actually, yes, I've already done that. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so these sliders here are actually very short, yeah? And a very tiny little, yeah, is going to significantly change the sound. And all of these different sliders are interacting with each other, yeah? Similarly, on the DFAM, for instance, with the pitch, one full turn of the pitch goes from really, really, really low to really high. I don't know how many octaves it is, but it's a lot, yeah? So it's a very, very large frequency range. So it's basically impossible to get back what you had before, which you might think was a real problem, but it's actually a very wonderful thing. It's like the prison sets you free somehow. I don't quite understand how it works, but one of the most freeing things that I found was the inability to save with these machines was the inability to save presets. There's just something about it. I don't know what it is. Some kind of psychological thing where you kind of got to commit, right? But obviously the downside to that is that if there's something that's like really wrong, yeah, or there's something that you want to change about it, then you can't, because you can't go back to the original sound. So what do? What I do is, here's the approach I take, is with splurging, is I get a fairly long part, yeah, I don't know if that's actually going to loop correctly with or loop in a good way with, it doesn't matter because I'm splurging, but with the profit, yeah, I'm just saying that, so if it sounds terrible, don't worry about it, because I'm just going to put it in. So it's to loop a fairly long part and just play around with it, because then I have recorded a bunch of source material that I can do whatever with. I could just use one bar. I could just use a, you know, a chunk. I could use the whole thing if it's great. I could use a section, you know. So essentially, I just kind of record a decent whack of it, and then something in there is going to work. Yeah. So that's how you do that. And one of the things, like in general about this, it's really funny because when I was demonstrating splurging in just the DAW, I had people go, "Oh, but Mike, you know, I'm just a hardware guy, right? And, you know, it's just not going to work for me. You know, splurging isn't going to work with me." And I'm like, why not? Yeah. And now you see me working with hardware. And now I'm using hardware, and I'm using plugins as well. But now I'm using hardware, I'm getting people going, "Yeah, but I've got plugins, you know, and it's just not going to work for me." I'm like, okay. So go and have a look at some previous splurges where I was working with plugins. I'm just not a preset kind of guy. Yeah. I mean, that's not the point here. Yeah. We have tools. We need to learn to use them. It's not the tools that create the music. It is us that creates the music with the tools. How do, Rob? How you doing? Good to see you back on here. Right, so I'm going to record this SH7 Jizness with Synth Cam, and here goes. Why did that stop? Weird. There we go. And that didn't record a single thing. Yes! Success! Here we go, look at this. Check this out. Oh, what an amazing performance there I did of the SH7. Absolutely nothing! That's because I've got this set over here to defam. Not clever. Not clever at all. Mike Monday, you're a fool. You're a fool. Now, how not to produce music with Mike Monday. So, let's come back and let's do that all over again. Yay! Sorry about that, folks. You're going to have to hear that again. Let's just check it's actually working this time. There's another schoolboy error. You didn't check it was actually working. I don't know. Anyway, I'm looking for my Softtube console. Okay, not that that matters at this point particularly, but just to put it in there. Okay. Take two. Actually, what I might do, what I thought about when I was the other thing that there is going on here is there's a click at the end of this. And you know what? Because this is Splurging, I'm going to leave it in. Because I'm that kind of a guy. Just to demonstrate the point. Actually, what I could probably do as well is record this at the same time. Hopefully the computer doesn't wibble on me, just to save a bit of time. Anyway, so are we good to go? Synth Cam! Let's go. Okie dokie. There we go. So now let's